and call the meeting to order at 6:33. Gabriella, would you mind being the timekeeper tonight?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, great. So Gabriella is appointed as timekeeper for tonight's meeting. First item on the agenda, public appearances. Are there any people in the public out there? I don't see anyone. I see the chief and I see Bill up there, the other Bill.
No one else, sir.
No one out there. Okay. So there are no public appearances. Next thing on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from November 8th, 2021 RCC meeting. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second, just open for discussion. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, take a vote to approve the meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None opposed. The meeting minutes, draft meeting minutes for November 8th, 2021 are approved. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, new business. First thing we want to start out is welcome our new RCC member, Bill Buss. And Bill, I assume you have a microphone there in front of you?
I do, and I know how to use it.
Okay. And what we'd like to do is maybe you can introduce yourself to us, and we'll go around and each of us quickly introduce ourselves and who we are.
Sure. So I go by Will. My name's Will
Okay.
Bussey, and I've been in Fitchburg since about 2015, so about 6 or 7 years. And see, I've got a family. I'm married. I've got 3 daughters. All my girls go to Leopold Elementary School.
Okay.
And I'm during the day I'm a physical therapist. I work for UW Health, and I'm just interested in serving on the commission here to really, first of all, I want to learn. I feel like I have a lot more to learn about how to be engaged at the local level. Really care a lot about just being a good steward of the environment and doing what we can on the local level to especially address issues of climate change. That's kind of my main motivation for being here and joining you guys. So, I'm looking forward to learning from you guys and getting to know you. So.
Well, great. Well, welcome aboard. It's great to have you on the team.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and start out introducing myself, and we can work around the screen here. I'm Ron French. I'm the chair of the RCC, the commission, and I've been on it for approximately about 2 years now. I'm an environmental scientist. I live here in Fitchburg. My wife and I do, and we have a dog. I'm kind of semi-retired, but I have my own environmental consulting business, and like you, I'm really interested in making sure that we have a very environmentally friendly, livable city. And with that, Phil, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I will. My name is Phil Groupie. I am the sustainability specialist with the city of Fitchburg. I'm one of 2 staff members who report to this committee. The other one typically is our environmental engineer, Claudia Guy. She's out on parental leave right now. We're hoping to have her back, I believe, end of March. I've been with the city for a little bit over 2 years now. Live in Fitchburg. That's been for about a year. So started working here when I was living in Monona, but I've been in the area for quite a while and got a background in environmental education, energy efficiency, and kind of handle those sorts of efforts with the city, monitoring energy use, renewable energy, progress towards our goals, green communications and outreach, the bike committee, and some other things along those lines. So welcome to the RCC.
Thanks, Phil. Diane?
I'm Diane Streck. I'm a CPA. I started on RCC a long time ago, shortly about a year after we moved here. and like you will, I started because I wanted, well, first of all, I saw contractors not recycling cardboard, and I contacted the city about that. And the city staff person at the time said, "Hey, do you want to be on RCC?" So I've been on it and learned an incredible amount. Since then, I and Chris are both past chairs. Let's see, I also have a dog. I guess that's just about everything.
Thanks, Diane. Gabriella?
Hi, Will. Nice to see you again. Gabriella Gerhart, I'm the Aldo representative to the committee. I was fortunate to be appointed to this one right after I was first elected in April 2020, and I've been here ever since. And, part of my campaign was about preparing the city for climate change and environmental responsibility and sustainability. So this was sort of my dream committee assignment, and I've been having a great time with these fantastic people. I think you'll enjoy it, Will. There's great staff, great committee with a lot of energy. And honestly, this is probably one of the most, if not the most engaged committee in the community. We do actually do outreach events in the community, and we're out and about. And it's a really fantastic committee. I think you'll have a lot of fun. My background is in geology. I was trained as a geologist, but now I work in nonprofit fundraising. And yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Gabriella. Kim?
All right. Hi, my name is Kim Workentine, and I've been on the committee. I think I always lose track because I feel like I've been here forever, but I think it's 7 years. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's
you
right.
probably would know. Some days it feels like not very long, and other days it feels like we've done a lot. So I work for the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association doing youth ed programming. And when I joined, I was very interested in recycling and other sustainability issues, and helped to start the lunchroom recycling program at Leopold when my son was in first grade. In kindergarten, I noticed that the school wasn't recycling milk cartons. And so that was one of my primary interests. And then I discovered that Chris's son also went to school there, and our boys were in the same class. And so we kind of started this effort that's been ongoing, and you'll hear more about it as we go along, but now it's turned into a huge program. We're still, Leopold is still our pilot school, and there's been a lot of good effort there, and among some other elementary schools as well.
Thanks, Kim. Chris?
Hello, welcome. So I've been on the RCC since 2008. Similar to Diane, about a year after I moved to Fitchburg, I came to one of their annual events, and then the rest is history. So I had a short stint where I was off, but I have been in charge of community outreach since 2010. We've been a little bit quiet the last couple of years with community outreach, just because of the ongoing pandemic. We did have a tree diversity event last summer, and hopefully we're able to get some more events going as we get into the spring months. So my background is a geological engineer and geologist. So that was what I studied in school. And I'm an environmental consultant full-time. So I work primarily on solid waste landfills, but also with other environmental compliance matters. So that's a little bit about my background. Probably my focus areas, again, have been community outreach, but then also focused with Kim on the recycling effort in the schools. So welcome, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Chris. And Josh?
Hi there, I'm Josh Knackert. I am work for Exact Sciences as a medical education and grants specialist. And I think I'm coming up on about a year with the committee, if I'm remembering right. And it's been wonderful. I mean, I approached it similarly to some of the reasons you provided, have a I'm pretty new to the Fitchburg area, only here for a couple of years, but have a young family and really wanted to get involved locally. I have, a passion for environmental sustainability as well as a little bit of training during my undergraduate career. And so it's just something that I thought would be a great mix, right? The chance to get involved, the chance to try and advocate for this and bring it to the public and all those pieces. And so far it's definitely been that. I think it's really interesting to hear Gabriella speak to this as one of the more active commissions in the community, and it does feel that way. I feel like we're pretty minded, and we try to keep an eye on that, even with everything notwithstanding in the past couple of years. So I'll echo the sentiments that it's a really great bunch and an invested bunch, and we're excited to have you. So nice to meet you.
Thanks, Josh. So you can see, Will, that we have a well-talented team here on the commission, and we're glad you're here to join us. And maybe Diane, since you've been here the longest, is there any kind of like words or advice or things that you might want to share with Will, expectations of a commissioner?
I would just say, I think a lot of new members are surprised by the amount of time that we spend outside of meetings. And so I hope before you volunteered, I'm assuming you volunteered to join, I hope somebody warned you about that. I mean, it's not, we all are volunteers, but it's almost become in some cases a second job. And because of COVID, we haven't been as active as we otherwise would be, but we do cleanup events, we host community outreach projects. Chris and Kim already talked about the cafeteria recycling. I mean, you could literally make this a full-time job if you wanted to. So I guess hopefully you'll feel comfortable giving some of your time, but we're not asking you to give 40 hours a week.
I haven't done this yet. Kind of lost track of it over the holidays and some other things popping up, but Will, I'd be happy to maybe check in really quickly with Ron and Diane after this meeting and send you a few things that could help get you up to speed with the RCC as well. Just some meeting minutes and examples of some past things that the RCC has done, just to kind of help you filter through what are maybe the most notable things to familiarize yourself with.
Yeah, Phil, can you make sure, I don't know if he has a copy of the member handbook?
Should have received that, but
Okay.
I'll include a link to that as well, just in case.
Okay, I didn't know if you got it or not, Will.
Yeah, I could
Okay.
use that. I don't have one of those yet.
Okay.
All right, we'll get that to
Phil,
you.
make sure you get one. And Claudia Guy, who's on maternity leave, she is part of the staff member. She'll probably be coming back, what, in February?
I believe she's out
Sure.
through late March, so
Late
we
March,
can
okay.
expect her at the April meeting. I don't
Okay.
remember if it's April or June that we take off, but either April or May, we should have her back.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, let's move on to the other item under the new item business. That's a resolution R225-21, adopting the City of Fitchburg Annex to Dane County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. And we have the chief here today, I guess, to give us a little overview of that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Basically want to give you an idea of what we've been working on with Dane County. One of the important things to note about this document is this is not a City of Fitchburg document as much as it is contributions to the overall Dane County mitigation plan. From a FEMA perspective, mitigation is defined as any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to human life and property from a hazard event. And so what we were doing to provide input to Dane County is to take a look at some of the historical incidents and actions that have taken place in the City of Fitchburg to give some perspective as far as where our vulnerabilities are. And what we've seen, the two significant vulnerabilities are that of flooding and any time there's a heavy wind or tornado event. Those are the two areas where we have seen the most damage in the City of Fitchburg. So what the intent of this document is to provide some of that perspective, identify some of the growth in the city and how that may be impacted in response to where our floodplains are and those types of things. It gives us a really good idea as to how our development has been going, and that from a zoning perspective, we're keeping an eye on where our buildings are being built to hopefully reduce any potential damage in the future. So those are some of the takeaways that we came with out of this document. And then it was presented to the council, where it was referred to a number of different commissions, just to make sure that we're getting the input that we need to be able to voice the concerns of the municipality. So with that, I'll pause to see if there's any questions specific to the document, or if you have any questions for me.
I have a couple of questions. This is a 2023 update. So does that mean that there was a plan prior to this?
This has been, this started in 2010, and every 5 years-ish, they've been providing updates. So this is the first one that I've worked on since I've been with the city. I started in 2016. And as my role as Emergency Management Director, I have been tasked with making sure that the information that was requested is provided to Dane County with input.
Then I have questions on, I think it's page 17 of the update. Actually, I have 3 questions on there. It refers to a climate action plan. Let's see, where is that? Climate change impact, maybe it's the next page.
On page 17 of 32, it's 24 of your packet. Is that what you're talking about in the regulatory section? And it says climate change impact program, and I said yes.
Actually, it's the second line from the bottom, climate action plan.
Yes.
And then it says that the sustainability specialist, which is Phil, follows Dane County's guidance. I didn't realize that you did that, Phil.
Hey, Phil, I believe this is one thing that I had asked you about when we put this out to staff members, and we as a city don't have a sustainability plan, but Dane County has one at this point. However, in the 2022 budget, there is a plan to address a sustainability plan. Phil, can you speak to that, please?
Sure. So there is not a there's not formal adherence to the Dane County Climate Action Plan. It is something that we're familiar with, and we try to, just like most communities that participated in the creation of the Dane County Climate Action Plan, try to follow that to the best of our abilities. We certainly refer to that where it has more detail than we've got in a lot of those areas. It has more detail because we haven't developed a climate or sustainability plan. So that we're hoping will change with beginning efforts to get a sustainability plan together this year, whether that's, as we've talked about before, if that's going to be kind of broadly encompassing everything pertaining to sustainability, if we focus on energy and water and climate, since those are kind of the biggest gaps we currently have. But it's at this point, it's kind of an informal trying to follow that climate action plan, but there isn't any sort of formal check-in on that.
I guess I would just, the last sentence is the Common Council approved a sustainability plan in the 2022 budget. They approved some dollars for a plan. That may or may not cover the whole plan. So maybe you want to just rephrase that they approved starting a sustainability plan?
Maybe I can just say that the Common Council approved investment into sustainability. That sounds good. Okay.
My other question is, if you go up, it's halfway down the regulatory tools, it says Climate Change Impact Program. Can you tell us what that is, Phil?
Do you want me to answer that, Phil?
Sure. Yeah. If you're able to, I can certainly fill in.
Yeah. So I think that it was hand in hand with what we just spoke about is the fact that the climate change impact program, although we don't necessarily have a program, we do have a sustainability specialist that puts us in a position to address some of those things through the processes and procedures that the city of Fitchburg follows. But yeah, Phil, if you want to address that any further, if I need to address that from a verbiage standpoint, just let me know.
The tool term there, climate change impacts program, that's something that is part of the Dane County hazard mitigation plan form, or did you craft that language?
The term itself was something that was in the template. So all of those regulatory tools are things that they're asking about. It's not something that we came up with. That's not our terminology. That was terminology, I believe, that was set forth from FEMA.
Sure, and again, that's something where we do have several programs and we have several items that the city follows that do impact climate change. We don't have anything, I would say, with quite as clear and direct a title, but yeah, things like the clean energy resolution and certain things the city has committed to, certain programs that are overseen by various parts of public works, and my role certainly are at least in part addressing climate change impact.
So, and that's an interesting component of this entire this entire submission, is the fact that this isn't intended to lay out the details or the specifics of any one plan that we have in the city of Fitchburg. However, if FEMA wants to have a discussion about things that Fitchburg is doing or can do better, they're going to look for somebody in the city that can answer those questions. And the fact that we have a sustainability specialist puts us in a really good position to speak to those programs at the level that they need to be spoken to. So having somebody with the intellectual and wherewithal to be able to speak to other climate specialists or to anybody associated with things that have to do with environmental protection on a local level, we have that available in the city of Fitchburg.
I think it might be a little bit misleading to say that we have a climate change impact program, mostly because one of the biggest climate change impacts that we have is stormwater, and we have no stormwater. We were talking about that actually last week in a subcommittee. We have no plan for stormwater yet. That's something that we need to include in the sustainability plan. So maybe you can hedge on the language a little bit.
Sure, and impact doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing what we need to resolve it. We are impacted by these things that affect climate change. We may even contribute to those at certain levels, providing impact. And it's nice to know who we can talk to. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing anything to mitigate it right now. We've made strides to be able to address it at certain levels. Obviously, as a fire chief, I'm not necessarily your point of contact, but having somebody like Phil available really does put us in a better position to be able to answer those questions from an impact standpoint. So I don't want to suggest that we're where we need to be, but we know that we do impact the climate. We know that we impact the environment, and Phil is able to address those things that we need to be able to prioritize.
Actually, my problem isn't with the word impact as much as it is with program, but I think that that's a little bit misleading. But if Phil is comfortable with it and the council is comfortable with it, I guess that's up to them.
Okay, I have a question. Again, Diane, you have any other questions?
No, that's it. Thanks, Ron.
Okay. On page 20 of the package under the table asset inventory, I was just kind of confused where it says occupancy and capacity. Why is there properties listed there? Numbers of properties.
All right, so you're looking at page 13 of 32 or 20 in the packet, right?
Right, yeah. I
So-
was expecting to see like the number of people that would be in that building or.
The issue with the data that's provided is I can provide information about the value of that property. As far as occupancy, because of the fact that it's not a mandatory reporting, there's no mandatory reporting associated with the number of employees that you have. It's hard for me to report on those numbers. Even the equipment and the inventory that is inside those buildings isn't necessarily reportable to the point where I can provide the value of the things inside the building. But through our assessor and through Dane County Land Management, we can identify the value of the property and the building. And that's about the best that I can do with any degree of accuracy. Anything else is an estimation. And that doesn't necessarily speak to what's going to impact us initially when we go out to do a damage report or a damage assessment. We'll know it's hard to put a value on a person. It's a lot easier to put value on property. So we can identify lives lost. The dollar amount associated with lives lost is not necessarily reflected in a realistic number as much as what the property and the building is valued at. So that's why that's in here. From a damage assessment, it gives us a starting point as far as the overall assessed value in the city of Fitchburg.
Well, it seems like to me, heaven forbid a tornado comes through again, and the Pro Mega building gets wiped out or one of the buildings. To me, it seems like it would be useful to know how many employees are in those buildings so you can be able to, address any of the first aid issues that might come with any destruction in the building or something like that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think that speaks to something that is imperative to know about this document. From a mitigation standpoint, mitigation is different than preparedness or response. From a response standpoint, we have a number of different mechanisms that we put into place when we have to respond to an emergency, to include identifying the accountability of the personnel that are on site. So those are things that we do with our response, but it doesn't necessarily speak to the mitigation as far as doing something that pertains to a sustained action, reducing or eliminating the long-term risk to human life or property. Response and preparedness is a little bit different, and yes, we absolutely try to get on top of those things as soon as possible so we can address those that are injured, those that are missing, and then trying to set up something in the way of providing some reassurance that we're addressing those concerns from a life safety standpoint.
Okay, I got you. Right. One other question. I noticed Pick and Save was not on the list here, but Hy-Vee was.
I think that is just because of the fact that that's how it came out on the list. Pick and Save could very well be put on that list as well. I don't have every occupancy from Oak Creek in here, or Oak Creek. Now you know where I used to work.
Well, I know it's based upon taxpayers, but I didn't know where Pick and Save would have fit in. I just saw Hy-Vee and I go, well, we do have 2 supermarkets in the city of Fitchburg.
Yeah, and it could very easily be put in there. It just didn't come up on the list, and I had a limited number of spaces, and I think we just took the top taxpayers and addressed those with the properties that are listed in the top 10, I believe is what I took.
Okay.
Can I ask Bill a question in relation to this document? In terms of a potential future sustainability plan, are we beholden to this? Does it limit our opportunity for a future plan in any way? I mean, this comes to an assessment that the top two risks to us are, flooding and wind and tornado damage. I mean, is this going to guide that plan? Are we going to be limited in any way?
No, this is a starting point. It's not an ending point. So everything that happens within the city of Fitchburg is something that we evaluate moving forward. And if it is something that pops up as being an ongoing issue that requires mitigation, then we report on that accordingly. So what I did in this situation is I worked with employees, staff members that have been with the city for a while to try to get an idea of where our biggest vulnerability is based on the things that we've responded to in the past. And what can we do in order to potentially eliminate some of those concerns in the future?
And adding on to that, I would say that rather than this potentially limiting the development of a sustainability plan, I would say that this would help to inform the creation of a sustainability plan. It's, if we're trying to think about, obviously global climate change is a huge issue, but in Fitchburg, what are we primarily concerned about? It's our contributions and the way that Fitchburg is impacted by climate change by not being sustainable. And so understanding these risks helps us to understand both from a climate change mitigation standpoint, but also from a resiliency standpoint, and how will Fitchburg manage with a changing climate, with changing ecosystems and weather patterns and things like that.
The other thing this helps out with is if we do have another sentinel event or something that requires long-term investment, we can go back to these documents and say, this is the trend that we have been seeing. And so it helps establish where we've been and where we're going and things that maybe need to happen now in order to get in front of future problems.
You just
Well,
want
and
to.
sorry.
We should start
Gabrielle.
wrapping up the conversation if we can.
Okay. Any more questions for Chief?
I just have one, unless Kim has one.
No, it wasn't a question. It was just a comment that I think it would help us as a committee to also see some reoccurring challenges or issues, if we needed to focus in on particular areas that become, ongoing issues for us.
So one of the things that I don't know that it was done last time this happened, once again, this is my first kick at the can, but what I would encourage you to do is take a look at the document as it sits right now. They haven't changed that significantly over the course of time. And if there is something that we need to take a look at for a future document, I'd be happy to look into it. I just know that this was presented to me over the course of a 6-month work window, and if I have information in front of me next time or something that I can look into in advance, it makes it easier to put that information together within a time frame that is manageable.
Okay.
Chief,
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, were there significant changes from the 2021 version?
I think the biggest thing that we saw as far as a change was the Lake Barney area on the south side of the city.
Okay.
And I know that there are efforts being made right now, things being put into place to be able to mitigate that moving forward. But that's an ongoing process, and I spoke to it, and I provided our floodplain maps to be able to reinforce the fact that we not only have issues, we have documented issues. So hopefully those are the types of things that can be looked at as we move forward.
Good, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? If not, we go ahead. I'd like to have a motion to approve the resolution R-225-21.
Move approval.
I second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Kim seconds. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
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 All those opposed? None No opposes, so resolution passes.
Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone. Hey, Phil,
Thank
I'm
you,
about to
Chief.
come out the front of the city hall, so I'll probably see you out there, right?
Thank you.
You're muted.
Oh, yep, sorry, I was muted. It's a bright sunny day out here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Chief.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you, Chief.
We're about 13 minutes behind.
Okay,
Just
we'll
as
catch
a-
up here. Next item, 4C 2022 recycling shred event dates. Phil?
Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. The dates for this are in the staff update section of the packet. I've reached out to representatives from Resource Solutions and Pelletieri, and there were really only 2 dates that aligned with what we look for in a shred recycling event date and what they had available. So I booked Saturday, April 9th for a spring recycling date and Saturday, October 15th for the fall.
Did you consider an evening recycling?
We talked about it, and it seemed, at least at this point, it seemed like it was going to be more logistically difficult.
And then are we also doing the e-cycle at the same time?
Yes, this will be the shred event and the e-recycling.
My suggestion, I read in the minutes, and I remember the discussion that checks held things up. Maybe they could just have a sign rather than not accept checks at all. Maybe they could just have a sign that indicates who to make the check payable to and what the fees are, so people can at least get the check, the issue 2 part completed before they get up to the front of the line.
Yeah, we can certainly recommend, or maybe even look into crafting something ourselves that alerts drivers. Here's how you make checks out to. We can encourage folks to bring cash instead of checks. That may speed things up a little bit. I know that we provided volunteers with the rates for all of the recycling items. I'm struggling to remember if those were on the flyer. I don't know if any of you recall if we had all those advertised in advance.
Some things were
Gabrielle
there.
is shaking her head. Yes. So
I believe most of them were on the flyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it might be difficult to have something printed large enough to include all the rates visible for drivers as they're coming through. But we could at least give them some information to put on a check, so that the only thing needed when they arrive is writing in a number.
Yeah.
But some of the slowdown also was just the need to, they communicate what's in their car that they're recycling, and then folks who are staffing the event have to calculate what the charge is. And that's something that's unavoidable, but at least we could let them know ahead of time everything but the number.
We could make an ask to them for 2 people to man. I know they had a second credit card scanner and they just didn't feel like they had the staff that day to do it. I think with the amount of volunteers we've gotten in the past, and maybe we've proven to them that, we're apt at emptying cars and sorting things and working with a couple of them at doing that, because I felt like we did a pretty good job. And so maybe 2 of their people could focus on, the dollars side of things, because I know that there was a hesitation to have a volunteer doing that, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we could ask about being prepared for that. I got the impression this last fall was the first time I've participated in one of these. I got the impression that we were surprised at how quickly the paper shredding line shortened. And so we had more staff there than we needed ultimately, but we didn't necessarily know ahead of time that was going to be the case, and that we were going to be able to move people over. So if it worked out the same way this spring and fall, that we can shift somebody over there, that's something that could work out.
I think the reason that the shredding went faster is because Pelletieri, we were told originally Pelletieri wouldn't provide, they would provide people to operate the shredding equipment, but they would not take things out of people's cars. And in the end, I think there were 4, maybe 5 people from Pelletieri, and they were doing the cars just like we were. So maybe that's why it went faster, because you're right, we had more people there than we needed.
So we'll just ask them to do exactly what they did in the fall.
Good luck
It'll be
with
great.
that. So Phil, did you get the impression that other communities have scheduled this months ago, that we're behind the ball in scheduling this?
I don't know what all events were on these two companies' calendar. Some have scheduled this in advance. I didn't ask them what all limited their availability, but
Thanks
yeah,
for-
maybe that we need to reach out sooner.
Well, actually, I don't think we've ever scheduled it this early, so thank you for doing that.
Well,
Yeah,
I
thanks.
did want to wait until the fall one was completed before I reached out about this year's dates, and maybe we
Yeah.
won't. Maybe we won't do that in the future. I suspect that some of this may still be fallout from just the number of events that were canceled due to the pandemic, as we get another year removed from, knock on wood, from the worst of it.
Yeah,
I probably shouldn't tempt fate with that, but you know, as we get a little bit farther along, it may be that things settle out a bit more and we aren't running up against such stiff competition for dates, but we'll see.
We're at about 5 minutes for this discussion.
Okay.
Bill, did you indicate that October 15th was the only date available in the fall? I pulled up the Wisconsin football schedule. Not that we need to completely plan around
Yeah.
that. There is a home football game on.
There is. Yeah, we asked the only date that was available that would have avoided a home date given what Pelletarian Resource Solutions had available was November, and Resource Solutions really strongly encouraged us to go with anything sooner than November just because of the unpredictability of winter weather kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of open to, I want to say it was like November 7th or 9th or something. But they
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is risky. I think November 2nd was this last year, and that's one of the latest we've done it before. We got relatively lucky with not frigid temperatures, but people were still feeling it.
yeah.
So it definitely makes sense trying to get it in before Halloween.
Yeah, it's good 6 months spacing on the two events.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good. And who knows how that'll affect things. I mean, we've always avoided it. So,
we'll have to reach out for we'll reach out for volunteers before folks start buying up their season tickets.
Well, maybe,
right, fair
maybe
enough.
it'll be a later game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
Maryland, so I doubt
time.
it.
Oh.
They were surprisingly good this last year. Maybe it'll keep up.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, old business. Item A, the draft 2022 calendar events. Phil sent out, it's in the package. Are there any comments on the events being planned for 2022? I know most folks had a chance to provide some comments to it, and this is kind of like I guess the final version of it.
I have if you look at April and May, I'm not sure that's been updated. Are we planning a tree committee RCC biodiversity event in April? I thought we were planning.
That's from last year. That's carryover from last
That maybe, yeah, might have missed getting that one removed.
Okay.
And I don't think we typically don't have a meeting in April. That's not noted on here, but maybe we are having a meeting, but April is usually a really busy month for us between the shred event and the waterway cleanup, and then to turn around and have an annual event in May. I think that might be too close together. Were we thinking that the annual event would be the invasive species walkthrough?
So what I can at least say is the general months here, the no meeting planned in June, this is all carryover from 2021. So if things should change for this year, if we want to put the 2022 event later, we certainly could do that. But this is just carryover from what we've had in last year's calendar.
We've never had a meeting in April though. So
we have, okay, so that's.
So I think what happened is we transitioned from 8 to 10 meetings this past calendar year. And so, I mean, we take December off, and then the other month that makes the most sense to take off is probably April, just because, like Diane indicated, the number of events that we have. So
By no means do we have to have 10 meetings. We just have the budget that we could have up to 10 meetings if we want to. So if we did want to also take April off, that's totally within our power to do, to choose to do.
And so
Well,
we get,
Ron, we already talked about some of the events that we want to have, and one of them was that invasive species walkthrough. What month was that?
well, that's one we'd be planning for May. That would be our annual event.
That would be the May one?
Yeah,
Okay.
unless somebody else has something else.
No, I think that we should be specific then, you know, on the
Okay.
calendar, we should note what that is.
Okay,
And if we
Right,
have to,
so-
if we have to submit the CIP request in April, that should be on the discussion for the March meeting. Oh, I see it.
It is.
We have it up there.
Thanks.
that's there. Yeah. So right now for April, are we saying there's no meeting planned?
Do we want to switch that and still have a meeting in June?
I think I'd prefer to, April's a busy month.
Okay.
and
Yeah,
I
we
think
can,
should just save
we
the
can
meeting,
adjust that.
have a meeting in June, but not
Sure.
April.
So we will still have these 3 events.
No.
Well, no, not the tree committee biodiversity. We'll still have these 2 events at least for April, the recycling shred event and the waterway cleanups.
Waterway cleanup.
Submitting the CIP budget requests, that's something that staff will still do, which just we won't have an April meeting to discuss it. We'll do that in March. Yeah. And we can talk about, when the event is going to be held. We'll make sure that we have enough discussion in advance about posting flyers. This can all be handled without an April meeting. That's fine.
Yeah, and I might move the 3 bullets for May, the final 3 bullets, if we can, move them down into June, just to spread something into June.
Sure.
Which ones were those, Chris?
I think it's begin planning the 2023 RCC operating budget, because it looks like we finished planning it in July.
Okay,
The O'Brien Solar Farm Tour, we could probably.
And that's a carryover that may be removed from this year. I will want to reach out to MG&E for another update on public events with O'Brien, but this was, that's a relic from last year I didn't remove, that we were talking about possibly having an RCC specific tour.
And then the
I think,
programs could be covered in May as well,
yeah.
or June.
And I think I still would like to see an RCC specific tour if we can get beyond the fence.
Sure. Yeah, I'll check with them and see what I can do.
Okay.
At least now that there's been an open house, it's no longer kind of behind a curtain.
Right.
If they did an RCC specific tour, that's something that we could have. If we plan it far enough in advance, we could try to get a FACT TV camera there, just so that there's no concerns about open meetings violations.
Okay.
I think the first 2 bullets in July seem to be redundant.
Yeah, I think that was referencing the
that's again.
sustainability focused meeting that we were going to do.
Right.
So that might be a carryover too.
Well, and we'll still do that this year. So I'm trying to remember which months. This last year we did July for the stormwater specific meeting, and September was sustainability. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
So if we do that again, then maybe in June we'll want to, somewhere between June and August, we'll want to talk about what to discuss in September. Somewhere between either March or May, we'll want to talk about what to discuss for the stormwater meeting. But yeah, we can discuss. I can discuss with Ron when's the best time to have those in there.
And then in September, I think that first bullet needs to be moved to October.
Yes, now that we have a date. Yep.
Which bullet was that one, Diane?
Spring e-cycling, shred, and mid-drop event.
And that should say fall.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I suppose if you'd like.
Unless we're planning for the Southern Hemisphere, Fitchburg.
Okay. In March, the Madison Astronomical Society will be giving a presentation on the, just to give it on the dark sky. So just give everyone a heads up on that.
Awesome.
So they'll give a
Great.
15-minute presentation.
Well, good.
Okay, any other discussions or comments? Phil, you'll make those changes and get a revised calendar events out to us?
Will do.
Or get it to me and I'll review it, and then if I got any,
Right.
it looks
Yep.
okay, I'll get it back to you. Okay, moving on, next on the agenda, item 5B, the draft 2021 annual RCC report. I'm not sure if folks had a chance to look at that. Phil added it to our agenda later this afternoon. In place of, it was not included in the packet. There were two calendar events in the packet, so this was supposed to take the place of one of them. Are there any comments on the draft annual report?
I think we need to show the dates by the names so that we can show when Nate went off and Josh came on. And Will, were you a member officially in 2021?
I am not sure when I officially joined. I mean, this is my first meeting, so I was assuming that I'm as of January, but
Then we probably, when did council vote on?
The vote was November, right?
I think that's right.
It was the November 23rd meeting
Yeah,
So
that
then
he was voted in.
So I think we should show that you joined in November. This is our first meeting since then, so it's not like you missed any meeting. But I think we should show when Shelley went off, and I don't remember when that was, and when Will came on. I know there was a gap there. And Ron, I think you became chair in April or May.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Additionally, for other committee involvement, we probably want to note that Phil and I both serve on the Dane County Environmental Council.
Right. Sure. Yep.
That was the Dane County Environmental Council?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's So what we've done in past years is we've just had other committee involvement from the staff that reports to RCC, it looks like. Do we want to add, do we want to expand that to any other committees that any commissioners sit on?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition. What Josh suggested, I think that would be helpful.
And then we probably want to make sure at least that it's relevant to RCC. So I guess if folks want to chime in now, let me know what they are on, or it might be easier to just email me outside of this meeting. I can send a reminder and ask folks to let me know if there's anything else I should include for you.
I think we're looking for government-related activities, correct?
RCC, well, environmental related.
Well, I think that Dane County, because it's a overarching municipality, it makes sense to include it. If anyone was on a state board, it would make sense to include it, but I'm not sure we need to put any other
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
affiliations,
like,
in my opinion.
right.
You
I
want
think we
like
should-
the Sierra Club or something like that. It's like,
Right, I wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily
It's-
include that.
yeah.
Stick to governmental entities.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even like if you're on the board at the at Ulbrich Gardens, that's probably not something we would need to include here.
Right. I think it should be governmental oriented.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, let me know if you have anything else to include there, and I'll try to send a reminder out via email as well.
Okay.
Well, can we go down really quick? I mean, I know that I'm not a member of any other. I mean, we could probably knock most of it out right now.
Yeah. I'm not.
I'm not.
Kim?
Nope.
Kim, okay.
No,
Will?
No,
So I think it's just Phil and Josh's
Yeah,
Just
item.
on the
It's
environmental
only thing
council.
anyway, so
Alright.
then that saves you an email, Phil.
Fantastic. Okay,
All
so
right,
what I've
any
got
other
so far
comments?
is,
Go ahead.
yeah, I've got adding dates to the kind of this intro section here. Anything else? And myself and Josh for the environmental council.
Okay, we need to add Will at the top up there in the list of, since
He is up there.
Right. Yep. We just need to add dates.
Oh, I see it up there. Okay, yep. All right, any other comments? Okay, let's move on the agenda to item 5C, the 2022 annual event. As we discussed earlier, that's what I'm looking for, is to have the Southeast Council Regional Governments, it's not Southeast Council Regional, but the Southeast Invasive Species folks give us a tour at one of our parks to talk about invasive species. And so I'll be working with them to get that set up. And they ideally mentioned it to it in the presentation they gave us last year, that May would be the perfect time frame for that. So that's what I would like to be able to do. And I can coordinate with them on that event. I just need to find out which one of our parks would be a good one to hold the event at. Or it could be at a stormwater detention, one of our larger stormwater detention basins as well. So doesn't necessarily have to be a park.
You know, it could be along the bike path also. They've been doing, I think
Yeah.
it used to be Good Oak was doing some restoration work along the Cannonball Trail. So I don't know how much invasive there might still be. I suspect McKee has a ton, and that's a big area, so that could accommodate a lot of people.
Okay.
So
It'd be useful to reach out to our Parks Department to find out which one of our parks might have a variety of species out there, including invasive species.
well, Claudia did that inventory.
Yeah,
And that was pretty good, I think, pretty thorough.
yeah, it gave like percentage of, invasive species, percentage of native species. So that's a good thing to look at that one.
Maybe we can tap her brain when she gets back in April.
Okay.
And
Ron,
then-
do we have a date for this yet, or it's just going to
No,
be?
not
in-
yet. That's what I'm working on.
Okay.
So if we don't have a meeting in April, and if we're looking at May as a target date for this, that'll be,
Yeah.
it'll be tough to get Claudia's feedback by then,
Yeah.
unless it's late May,
Right.
maybe. But
Well,
yeah, I think at least in terms of picking a site, I agree with this. A park over just a bike trail. Bike trails are certainly great candidates for showing off invasive species, but if we have more than 6 or 7 people, it's going to get a little bit iffier with potentially blocking traffic or being at risk of being hit by a bike. So I like a park better there.
Ron,
Yeah.
you might want to touch base with Anna Healy, because she's our forester, but she's also the naturalist for the city. So she actually
Okay.
might have a suggestion.
Okay, she's the one that led the tree tour, right? Diversity.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it
What
would be
about like Dolly? Isn't that right off the bike trail? It's off of
Yeah, Dolly's right off the bike trail. It's a kind of a walk down a hill to the Cap City Trail. That's a possibility. I mean, if we really wanted to think about a bike trail, there's on the Badger State Trail as you go south and just get past sort of the Marketplace Drive area. There's a signboard there coming over from kind of that commercial park, that signboard, a picnic table, there's space that you could talk and then just kind of walk down the bike trail a little ways. There are a few spots like that as well. If we felt like a bike trail was the best opportunity.
Ron, I'm wondering timing of this. The people who presented to RCC, I can't remember if they suggested later May or early May. I'm just thinking about advertising and coordinating this, because if it's early May, we need to get it in the April issue of the Star. And if it's late May, then we can put it in the May issue of the Star. That gives us a little more time to connect with. I mean, we don't have to connect with Claudia at a meeting. You could connect with Claudia once she's back in the office. But we're just wondering about the, how we're going to publicize this and when.
So I think late May probably would be the best time frame.
Okay.
And so who puts together the announcement in the Star then? Is that something
That's staff,
staff? Okay.
but it could be an article, that could be the article for, well, depending on how close it is to the publication date, which is usually around the 15th, it could be the article for May, or it could be the article for April. It could be the article for April and then a reminder in May about the event.
Okay. Well, why don't I take on that as my next write-in assignment article? I'll do one of the invasive species.
Okay.
So
Well, Ron, you've written a lot of articles. I noticed that you had like 3 of them for the 2021. So, and the first one, this month as well. So, just in terms of timing, Diane, that's a good point. So, and this is where you can also pull in and tap into, kind of the community outreach subcommittee. We've been kind of on the shelf for a while since the tree diversity event, but Kim and I are strong on that community outreach committee. And then we pull in actually somebody else, Sharon Hanrahan. We have, and we probably need to recruit others to that. Not necessarily off the commission, because I think we don't want to have a quorum. I think, and normally we have room to have like someone come to one of those events, but there's others in the community that we could talk to. But I guess what I'm getting at is generally we target having those events, if at all possible. Our ideal time frame is like between the 15th and the 22nd. Again, that's to try to time out like how things are kind of coming along with the articles getting published in the Star. So we want to try to have it as soon after the publication as possible to kind of maximize attendance. Who knows if that really affects it, but it seems to help. And then, also the other thing that will happen late in May is Memorial Day. So just trying to stay away, from that weekend as much as we can. So
yeah. Diane, when is the article to start? When do they come out typically?
Usually around the 15th.
15th?
It'll be the second Friday of the month.
Second Friday of the month.
So this year, that's the 13th.
Yep. So we'd be looking at like sometime that week of, the 16th through the 20th is the Monday through Friday.
Okay. Well, I could write an article up for the May issue.
Actually, Ron, I think it would be good to have it in April and then a reminder in the May issue.
Okay.
That way, if people want to put it on their calendar, they have a little bit of a heads up. And I mean, that would be my suggestion.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And then the same as we did with the tree diversity event last summer, we can also make sure to promote it on social media channels as well.
Okay.
Fitchburg's Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
So maybe we could do it. Are you suggesting, Chris, maybe the 21st of May?
Yeah, that's looking like a good date. So if you could target a date, May 21st would be pretty ideal. We typically have them on a Thursday. Again, it doesn't need to be on a Thursday, but that's kind of what we've done in the past.
Oh, I was thinking Saturday. Oh, sorry. That wouldn't be the 21st. That would be the 19th.
Not May 19th.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it's May 1st is the Saturday. Oops.
So Chris and Kim, do you want to reach out to Anna and I'll reach out to the invasive species folks? If you could find out a good place for us to go.
Yeah, I'm happy, Chris, to reach out to her and ask her that.
Okay.
If that's all right, unless you want to.
Sounds good. Yeah, you can mention some of the places that we were initially thinking and see if she has.
Okay.
If one of those is good,
Okay.
I want to kind of cross-check it with, seeing where we have a lot of these invasive species. Make sure that, we're picking a spot that, we're going to be able to do a good tour of.
Okay.
And then, so Ron, just kind of keep me in the loop of how that's coming along.
Okay.
We'll start to pick it up and we'll start to take the lead on planning the event. So if you plan, coordinate the speaker, that's great. And then we're going to work on, marketing, giveaways, that type of thing. And we'll coordinate that effort going forward. So we can start to pick it up once you kind of get it, get it set here.
Okay. Yeah, those
Maybe
giveaways
the-
were great for the tree diversity event. So,
Maybe the invasive species folks will have some suggestions for giveaways that would be appropriate.
okay. It'd be nice if we get something from some native plants from a nursery or something like that.
Yeah. Ron, if getting into that, you've got too much on your plate with planning it all, I could certainly consider me as a possible backup for that article if it's getting into crunch time.
Okay, great.
I'd certainly be happy to support that if you need it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Phil.
And as soon as we have a date, I will let the council know every single meeting. We'll just start doing
Okay.
that as part of my RCC report. And then I'll let them know about their cycling events too. And then I'll probably contact the Parks Commission and the Tree Advisory Commission as well, and to get them helping with advertising,
Okay.
since it's a
So,
good.
Right now, we're looking at May 19th though, correct? That
Well, that's a Thursday.
Can
Yeah.
I
So
ask
May
if there's
21st.
a reason that we tend towards Thursday evenings rather than a weekend? Just thinking about ease of getting community members to it, and wondering if a weekend is easier or tougher to get a larger audience.
So yeah, I mean, I think, we've done, either way. I think I'm intrigued about trying to do this one maybe on a Saturday morning. It seems like it could be a good time early in the spring or not too early in the spring, but
Well, only think about the weekends, that time of the year, people are outside doing their gardening work and getting their mulch out and
mhm.
pretty busy on their own yards on a weekend. I mean, the tree event on the Thursday evening, it was well attended. I was surprised how many people attended.
Twice, because we
Yeah.
had a rain date, so we had people show up the first date too.
The
Right.
other thing about May weekends is a lot of graduation parties.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
That is
maybe-
graduation weekend too. So
yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think, we're not opposed to doing them on weekends, but, generally we ended up at a Thursday night for a reason. And that's because, of all the things that were just mentioned.
Yeah.
There's always something going on. That's graduation weekend. And it's a weekend before, and people are trying to get things done, like you said. So,
And I think also if you have kids, you have tons of, if they're involved in sports, you've got sporting events happening on the
Mhm.
weekends
Yes, yeah.
more so.
I think the Thursday goes back to our Green Thursday event. Phil, we used to have I think it was almost once a month we had a Green Thursday film at the library. And so Thursday and Thursday was the day that was available because Middleton had a different day and Monona had another day. And so we picked the day that was open. And so we sort of just fell into continuing. At the time, people were getting used to doing Thursdays. And we haven't had a Green Thursday movie in quite a while, but I think for RCC, it just became a habit.
Okay. Okay. So right now, tentatively, let's set it for May 19th unless somebody.
Yeah,
something
I like it.
Good.
Okay. Okay, where are we on time? Oh, we're actually caught up. Good.
Yeah, we're about 8 minutes ahead of schedule.
Way to go.
All right. All right. Next on the agenda, item 5D, the RCC presentation to committee of a whole, which is scheduled for February 23rd. Diane, Phil, and Chris and myself have been working on the presentation. Just to give you an update on what I'm doing, I'm just putting together the template and some of the upfront slides and the closing slides. And I know Diane has sent something out for us to look at, kind of the in-between parts of those sections.
Yeah, it starts on page 49 of your packet.
Yeah, and Diane, I just had a question. Are we looking at two sustainability plans, a municipal one and a community one? I just thought we were looking at one. That's what we're.
I'm gonna let Chris lead the discussion on this.
Yeah, so, over, since the last meeting, Phil and Diane and I have met a couple of different times, and we really kind of tried to hash out, different, how we wanted to present this to council. So, we wanted to kind of start off with, what's, so they've, the council has just invested in this. Thank you very much, Gabriella and Phil and Ron, for all your efforts to get it to this point. But we want to kind of go back, okay, well, what are we trying to accomplish with this sustainability plan? So really kind of put that out there first. So this is really an outline, if you're in the packet, of how we want to present it. And this is, we're bringing it to RCC to get your input. So this isn't set in stone by any means, but this is what we've come up with, after, much discussion and back and forth between Diane and Phil and myself. So start off with the objective of the sustainability plan, and then talk about what it would encompass. And so really there's kind of two main aspects to it, is the municipal operations and the community. And, just thinking about what the $25,000 would cover, we don't think that a $25,000 is going to cover kind of, everything, in terms of putting a municipal and a community plan, kind of all those aspects into a sustainability plan. So, we kind of broke it out, just to make sure that we're at least getting the municipal portion done, and then having the community portion of the sustainability plan following closely thereafter. That's kind of how we came up with it, and I know that there's a potential for additional TIF money, that may pop up, and, maybe that gives us an opportunity to kind of, put a little bit more focus, on both municipal and community. But we thought out of the gates that we would focus more so on municipal and make sure that that's on a path to getting done. And so, kind of moving down the slide. So we have some previous slides from municipal operations from the 2020 community of the whole presentation that I think we would go back to and probably just touch those slides up a little bit. But then, the community portion was a portion that we talked about, and what are the things that we wanted to focus on and really wanted to kind of grab the main bucket areas that a community plan would cover. And so those were, after, again, much discussion, we pulled it down into four main areas: transportation, energy efficiency, conservation and renewables, recycling and waste reduction, and then also water management. Any questions so far, on kind of what we have, or thoughts?
And I can add just a little bit more context on that. So this is also kind of the way that I started talking about potential scope of a sustainability plan last year. And it's maybe a little bit of an oversimplification to just talk about municipal operations versus community. Certainly, if we're just dealing with a sustainability plan that is maybe has a lower budget, we have to conduct it either with a shorter timeline or a smaller amount of outside assistance. We would still talk about, in the same way the Clean Energy Resolution did from 2019, the city is going to promote ways for Fitchburg residents and businesses to invest in renewables and to save energy. So we're still going to put things in the plan that address the community. But, to Chris's point about including something like transportation from a community scale, if we have a lower budget and are relying more on city staff, we have data on city operations energy. We have data on city fleet fuel purchases and miles traveled and things like that. But one really good metric for vehicle emissions in a city is total vehicle miles traveled. That's data that we don't have. It would be a calculation that would be a lot more intense, and it would help to be able to bring in outside assistance calculating things like vehicle miles traveled or overall energy usage for the residential and commercial sectors in the city. That's not, we can't ask on a house by house basis, but getting those sector energy totals and coming up with ways to measure those on an ongoing basis and set goals for that. So it's just sort of, it's a a little bit simpler, easier to digest way to talk about the different breadth and depth of detail and sort of quantitative measuring that we could get into, depending on what sort of budget we have available and what we determine that allows us to do.
We're not suggesting that we just do the municipal operations. We're suggesting that we do both, but a plan is divided, I think, naturally into municipal versus community. And when you talk about them, like the city already has several things that could be pulled into the municipal sustainability plan versus the community is just a different animal.
So we're talking about just one plan though, right?
Yes.
Overall
Correct.
for
Yeah.
the city, okay.
In my mind, if we send out an RFP and we'll get down to the dollars in a little bit, but if we send out the RFP and we have $25,000, that might get the municipal plan done and nothing else. But in my mind, if we start showing council tangible results from that investment, that will help propel us forward to get the whole thing done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also, there could be, like I think it'll help us get the municipal plan done a little bit faster. I mean, I think if you're focused on both, it may take longer, and we really want to get the municipal plan to kind of completion, like that's, we have a budget for it, so we want to get it to completion. We want to make sure that that's happening. So at least we have version 1.0 of this plan. And then, as we find, like Diane said, as we're getting some of those results are starting to come through and we're starting to see some of the benefits to the plan, or if, some additional monies come available, then we can kind of get going into the community operations. And I think, we want to try to cost out, and figure out some of, use the bidding process to potentially find out what some of those numbers might be so we can plan for it and be prepared for it with, kind of future budget cycles if we need to, and then so just kind of moving on. So just in terms of, we want to talk about, well, what do we need to do to pull together the sustainability plan? So, it's getting input from city staff. It's going to, require us as RCC members to provide some input, and then also kind of, having a consultant to kind of direct us through the process. In terms of the community operations, again, using city staff, the consultant, and now we're going to be digging, wanting to get feedback from and input from more of the community. So there's just the effort of facilitating and getting, probably, everybody represented, kind of across the scale, from businesses to energy experts to farmers to nonprofits, city department, kind of across the full realm of what we have in our community to provide, and put together a good community operations for a sustainability plan. So, and then we just kind of talk about, what the $25,000 would cover. So, we think that it will likely be enough for a municipal sustainability plan. So Phil has a couple of people, cohorts that he's talked to. Actually, smaller communities have been able to pull a plan together. I don't know, Phil, if you want to share your example. I think it was McFarland.
Yeah, I spoke with one of the planning staff with McFarland and talked to him about their process a little bit. They, coincidentally enough, also had $25,000 to use for a sustainability plan, and put an RFP out there and got, I don't remember the exact number he gave me, but in double digits bids. So they were able to find a company that kind of worked with them to guide this process and put together a fairly comprehensive sustainability plan for them for $25,000. I think it was a similar amount of money that we had available for our that we budgeted for our 2019 to 20 comprehensive plan update process. So that's something that is much more detailed, you know, in the hundreds of pages, but also we were working from a previous comprehensive plan. It wasn't starting from scratch. So it's very possible that 25,000 will be sufficient to put together, you know, pretty detailed, thorough sustainability plan for the city. But it's kind of hard to know until we start talking to potential consultants and know what their numbers are. I know I spoke with somebody else who does this professionally and indicated it could be a much more pricey project, but we also didn't get into the details about everything that might be included at, you know, at double or triple this cost. So some of it is just going to be we you know, start talking with potential consultants and see what they feel they're able to give us for different budget amounts.
So I have something to jump in here to say. First, I just touched base with Aldo Udall, the council president. The RCC presentation is probably going to get pushed past February, just as an FYI. And I'll talk a little more in my council update, but we're actually going to be talking really extensively about the ARPA TID funding plan. So this will probably get pushed, just so you know, so you'll have a little bit more time to work on this. I'm sorry about that. But that being said, before we talk about the sustainability plan, which hopefully will be March, we will have a ARPA TID spending plan. So in March, by the end of March. So we'll have a better sense of if we can get more funding. It's not a complete spending plan, but it is like a layout of what our priorities will be in terms of how we spend that money. So if we are going to get more money for the sustainability plan, we should know by the end of March. So that hopefully will help the conversation. I also just wanted to say a couple of things too. I think there's, in terms of the community, and maybe this is excluded because of the municipal operations, but under part 2 community, I think other parts of the plan could be parks and open space and natural areas. And then also land management, planning and zoning, I think is also potentially part of the plan, the scope of the plan. And then I guess my last comment would be for Phil. This type of plan, you know, if we truly only have 25,000 and we do the plan, you could potentially put more money in later and expand it in the future. Is that correct? Or is that like a difficult thing to kind of put more money in next year if we were able to get some more money in a future year?
I would want to talk to some Fitchburg. So I know that there are communities that have done a sustainability plan and 10 years later they update it. So it's certainly something that is done frequently. I think we would probably also need to be aware of the possibility that once we have a sustainability plan, a lot of people say, great, we did it, we're done, we don't need to put any more funding into this. It's a possibility that we might run into that kind of pushback, that maybe, you know, we have funding for it now and this is our next best chance to do it, so let's get as much as we possibly can. But there's kind of an argument to be made both ways, and it's hard. I hedge a lot just because it's really hard to know. Specifically, I would say that because we have the funding right now, I'd love to use this opportunity to just make it as comprehensive and thorough as we possibly can. You know, ideally, RCC has been talking about this for years. This isn't a surprise to anyone, but ideally, Fitchburg would have had this 10 years ago, and it just didn't work out. I don't think we are behind our peers in terms of dealing with a lot of areas related to sustainability, but we're behind in terms of at least having that kind of broad plan and language and kind of
Direction?
Sort of, yeah, direction, kind of a sustainability framework value put together. It would be nice to get that as soon as possible. To the specific points with like land use planning and zoning and parks and open space, one thing that as we get into building out the scope of a plan, we'll keep in mind is that those are areas we already have city plans for. And so one thing that would help us to focus more deeply on things like energy and water and recycling and transportation is knowing that we can point to the bike and pedestrian plan, to the parks and open space plan, to the land, the comprehensive plan as it pertains to zoning, and say, 80% of these things already deal with these issues in a way that's consistent with a sustainability framework. Here are some ways that maybe they don't necessarily address that, and it could be tweaked, improved, kind of refined, if we're really looking at it from a sustainability perspective. So we wouldn't build necessarily a sustainable approach to parks and open spaces from scratch, because we've already got a great framework put together by the city. And I can tell you from 2 years working here, a lot of the staff at Fitchburg already have a sustainability ethos, and they already understand in a lot of ways how to approach things. And so it's not like, well, we have a plan, but it didn't consider sustainability, so we got to scrap it and start over. In a lot of ways, these really are built quite well. And I don't spend a ton of time needing to remind people to do things from a sustainability perspective. Other staff will come to me and ask questions and use me as a resource, but it's certainly not like I'm the only person on staff already pushing for this. So places where we do have plans already, I think there's a lot of good stuff already developed. And it's really about how to wrap all that together with the few areas that haven't been addressed yet.
Phil, I want to thank you for those comments on staff, because that's very refreshing to hear. I mean, I think it's been a process, and I'm glad to hear that there's so much support among the staff. A couple of things for all of RCC members, and this is where we wanted your feedback. I mean, there are sustainability plans that are very detailed. They take years to develop. And in my opinion, you can get tangled up in the weeds. And there are sustainability plans that just sort of skim over everything, and you can check off the box, and that's kind of it. And I don't think that Fitchburg wants either one. I think we want something that we can get in the time frame that we've indicated, and based on listening to the council, and I agree, we need something that we can measure our progress and track it again, so we can quantify things. So that requires a little bit more detail than just the filling the box. And that's what we were thinking that we might get with this proposal. At least that's what the discussion with Chris and Phil, that's what the three of us think that Fitchburg should be looking for, should be shooting to get something that's done in a relatively fast time frame, but still gives us nuts and bolts to work with. Is everybody?
I think that's one reason, Diane, why we need to make sure we pick a good consultant to help us. Also, with this being such a high profile item within the city and for us, I think it's important that we have individuals on the committee that will kind of help work with the city to make sure this gets done. And I'm not sure, is it going to be you and Chris or anybody else that would help make sure that we have the right consultant on board. We're moving in the right direction with the sustainability plan, what we want. So it's going to be a big ticket item. So we want to make sure we do it right, like you said.
Well, hopefully it won't be. I mean, when we brought this idea forward 5 years ago, or maybe it was even longer than that, it's hard to remember, the cost estimate that was thrown out was considerably higher than what we now think that it might cost. And maybe that's because there are more consultants available. I don't know. I know that Phil has talked to a couple of cities who have used particular consultants, and I think he probably has a pretty good feel for, and we should, when we get the RFP, when we get the responses, we should have a pretty good idea of what these consultants will provide.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Under part 3, I just also wanted to say that for the different groups that you want to call on. You might want to also mention other commissions. You don't just have to call them out specifically, but RCC members, and then maybe another bullet for members of other commissions as appropriate. And then also I might call out the Common Council as well as a resource.
Mhm.
Common Council refers to the city council members and also to the mayor, in case anyone, it's all 9 of the elected officials in the city.
So we don't have much time to talk about this because we're getting close to our limit, but what is our next steps here in terms of getting, I guess, people engaged on the commission, on our commission, to start thinking about our strategy of where we go with starting this and developing the plan? So is that a different discussion, or?
I think it's a little bit of a different discussion. I mean, right now, this is just focused on the presentation to as part of our committee of the whole. So are we covering, the right topics is kind of what we want. And, you guys have, provided some additions that, we'll incorporate into this outline. And just to quickly cover it, kind of the timeline that we're envisioning for a municipal plan. We think that is more of a 6 to 9 month that we want to try to target. Whereas a community, and part of that is considering, getting, the funding in place for it. We're foreseeing that more as a 18 to 24 month process to get to the end point of, getting, facilitating all the community conversations, gathering that feedback, grabbing some of that data like vehicle miles traveled types of things, and really putting together a decent community sustainability plan. So right now, I mean, and it's not to say that can't be, faster than that, but we envision that's, more like on the 18 to 24 month time frame to get that, something that we're satisfied with, as part of our sustainability plan.
So are we looking like total overall, almost a 3-year time period to have it all done?
It shouldn't take that long, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's
hopefully
on the
more in a 1.5 to 2 years.
I think so. I
End
think
of 2023, I think. It'd be nice to have the municipal done in 2022.
I think end of 2023 is very realistic. It's those that have taken longer, and some have been more of the 2 to year time frame. Some of it is that they do pursue their plan in a lot more detail. Some is also that they're just much larger metropolitan areas, and there's a lot more data to capture, a lot more, just a lot more details to include. So, we kind of we're scaling down the community size, which should make it faster, but also that means scaling down the available staff, which slows it down. And it's just hard to know. I would say once we really get this started, once we put out an RFP, I'd be very surprised if it takes more than 2 years. I think so much can change over a 2-year time period that once you start collecting data, you really do want to get this done as quickly as possible. Because the sustainability plan is laying out your long-term goals and framework, but it's also starting from a particular place a lot of the time. And so you don't want your baseline to cover a 3-year period, ideally. My goal is end of 2023, regardless of the scope and scale, that this thing is fully put together by the end of 2023. And as things go along, of course, we revise that forward or backward, but that's the goal I'm looking at right now.
So I think around what we would do is, if anybody has any additional comments that they want to share with us, please share those with, I think Diane, myself, for now. And then we will incorporate that. And then what we're going to start to do is work on the slides, and support Ron with that effort. So, I think, it sounds like at the February meeting, maybe we could potentially have draft slides. So we weren't going to start that until we ran by RCC members. So I think, a possibility would be to have draft slides. A target would be for the next meeting to have draft slides for the sustainability plan portion done, so people could, take a look at that.
Okay.
And so just to make sure I'm clear, because I know that I've only been included in emails talking about this, is the RCC presentation to Committee of the Whole going to encompass kind of is it going to also be like a report of what RCC did last year and an overview of some of the goals for this year, or is it primarily talking about the sustainability plan?
No.
And okay,
Yeah, the first thing that you mentioned.
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all of those. Yeah. It's like, this is like the keynote portion of it. You know,
Yeah.
when we initially were talking about this was going to be like the portion that was going to be trying to sell it, and trying to get it financed. But we have the first portion now financed. So now it's more so talking to them about what we're planning to do and kind of trying to get council's input before we get into kind of the next stage is what you were talking about more, Ron, was, kind of what's our involvement going to be and what timeline do we want to keep and what parts do we want to have as emphasis points within the sustainability plan. That will come after I think we see some of the proposals and see what some of the consultants can do out there, since, I'm assuming they have a lot more experience than any of us putting these plans together. They might know what might fit our community better than we do in some cases. So it'll be a cool process to go through. Looking forward to it and working with all of you, and we'll start to define our roles with it, as we move forward.
Yeah.
Can I just back up a second? Will, apologize for not explaining this sooner, but the Committee of the Whole is actually the entire council, but it's in a more discussion venue rather than, it's still a formal meeting, but it's a discussion which they can get into more detail than in a council meeting. And so RCC requested time, or actually, I guess the council approached Ron and asked if we wanted to present something to the Committee of the Whole. And we typically do we try to do a little annual report. This is what we've done because in the past, the council hasn't really, we haven't had the opportunity to give council updates. And so now we'll do like an annual report, and this is what we're doing going forward. And are there things that the council wants us to focus on or do differently? Or do they have any questions on what we're working on? So that's kind of where we are with the Committee of the Whole. And you just heard why we have the sustainability plan as a big part of that presentation.
Thanks for sharing that, Diana. Okay, so I've got, like I said, I have a template together. I'll get it out to Chris and Diane and Phil for you guys to look at by the end of this week. Just making some slight modifications to it, and there'll be some blank slides in there that I'll probably need some input from you on, but we can email back and forth on that. So, and then we can, hopefully by February, then we can have a draft presentation to share with the rest of the commissioners and staff.
Very good.
All right.
We're about 5 minutes behind.
Okay. Well, we're going to get caught up here because Phil's next. Item 5E, efforts to meet the 2019 clean energy resolution goals. Phil?
Yeah, so I think this can be pretty brief. The one big thing from last year in terms of meeting the clean energy resolution goals, we talked about at length. The O'Brien solar array came online, that project from EDF Renewables and MG&E. Fitchburg is indeed purchasing roughly sorry, my mind just glitched for a second there, 1/40th of the project, I believe. And it's the equivalent of about 20% of our electricity usage. Since the project came online mid-year, we didn't fully get up to the 40% renewable that we're projecting with this project. So for the calendar year 2021, I'm still going through all of our numbers. I don't have the fourth quarter fleet fuel usage, and I don't have the annual purchases from Alliant Energy yet. I've just got MG&E and our first 3 quarters of fleet usage. But looking at that with our renewables production, thanks to O'Brien, we increased our overall renewables usage almost 50% above the previous year. And that's with half a year of that solar farm. So expect that to be even higher in 2022. And then in 2021, our renewable usage is probably going to end up, once I get all the numbers in, above 30% of our total kWh. So the initial goal that we had set was 25% by 2025. When we signed on to the mayor's the 2009, sorry, not mayor's, but the governor's 20 by 25 by 25 pledge, that was for electricity and fuel usage. So I'll still need to do a couple calculations to see if we have 25% emissions reduction from our electricity and fuel combined. Certainly we're there with electricity. I think my expectation is still by the end of this year, 40% of our municipal electricity for operations will be generated from renewable sources. And if we're at 40% for electricity, I've got to believe we're above 25% for electric and fuels together. We'll just have to see how that is. And we're going to keep pushing for more progress this year. So hopefully even higher than 40 by the end of this year. But that's still kind of working on the total energy numbers for last year, as I said, but that without a significant change in our overall energy usage as a city, we got a big boost to our renewable profile.
Right.
So next up is 100% by 2030.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
I sure like to see how the solar farm is doing out there, some of that data on it. So
yeah, I don't know if I would assume that even if they don't have any kind of like an online dashboard, MG&E would report, if you go to look at their annual reports on their website, they'll have data about production from the solar array. I have a couple thoughts about where that would be found, but I can dig into that and try to make a reminder to myself to try to include something about that in the staff report for February.
Yeah, since they're right down the road from me, every time I go out to Hy-Vee or something like that, I've kind of been looking at the amount of snow that's on them. And
yeah,
it's like when we have a good snowfall, almost 20 to 30% of those panels are covered with snow. So we're just going to cut down on them being efficient.
So one of the cool things about it, though, some of that snow will melt just because of the dark color of the panels themselves. You get more solar radiation, but also because they're bifacial panels, it's not just the front, but also the backside can absorb energy. So with the solar radiation bouncing off of the snow, that'll actually hit the backside of the panels and they'll generate electricity that way. So definitely a decrease on those snowy days, but not as much as you might think.
This may seem like an odd question, but I know they can go about 90 degrees because I've watched them, turn and stuff like that. Why isn't there just a default after a storm that they all do that?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Why isn't there a default? What?
That they would turn as sharp as they could to dump as much snow off.
Yeah.
Because I've watched them rotate, so I'm just curious why there's a default to try and kind of improve, get rid of the snow base.
They'd have to turn really fast, I bet.
Or even
like a slow rotation.
Snow.
Yeah, if it's a more powdery snow. Yeah.
I'm thinking more of like
some of it at least.
Right.
I'm picturing like the Pixar lamp now, just sort of shaking snow off its head.
Or that I was literally like, why don't we just give them electric leaf blowers and have them blow themselves off? Like, there's lots of things running through my mind, Phil, but 90 degrees felt like the most feasible option here.
Yeah. No idea. I didn't think to ask him that. Yeah.
We'll have to save those questions for the tour.
That's right.
Yeah, I think those are good questions. A couple things real quick on that. So one, I thought, I was thinking the same thing, Josh, but like, I think like proactively, like before the storm comes instead of like until the snow's on there. Yeah. So the other thing I can speak to having solar myself is when they're south facing and they're at an angle, like all it takes is a 25-degree day. And even if we had 6 inches of snow, the next day that's all sliding off and all coming off anyways. So it happens pretty quick, and just using the sun and having those at the right angle. So I think there's a couple of ways, but that is an interesting question and one to save maybe for our tour, which I want just to put in the 2 cents, just make that like a potential public event or a summer event, to get more people out there instead of just us.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, let's move on to Diane, the Fitchburg Star articles, item 5F.
Okay, Ron's article should be in the Star that's coming out this week. Josh is writing an article. Let me back up. one of our outreach programs is to write articles in the Star. I don't know if you've seen some of those, but we have some guidelines from the previous editor as to they should be from a persuasive standpoint and length and things that he likes, which I can share with you. And we just individually pick topics that are of interest to us and write an article. And if you're not comfortable doing that, then that's fine. You get a pass. So having said that briefly, because I can send you some more information once I have your email address. We have Josh for February. March, typically when there's an election going on, there's not room for an article because of advertisements from politicians. So I'm not counting on submitting an article in March, and I'll tell Scott that you all got hopefully Scott's contact. He's the new editor, at least for that page. April, Ron has agreed to write another article for April, and that will be on the invasive species with Phil as a backup if Ron wants. So we need an article topic for May. So we have time because we'll have another meeting in February and another one in March. But I'd like you all to start thinking about something that might interest you. Phil is showing what some of the other articles have been on my list. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, is to add to that for articles that have been written since we started writing articles, topics, so that you can just have an idea. But you can write about everything, about anything. The previous editor didn't like us to repeat something within a year or two. So, I mean, you can have the same topic and a different bend on it. And actually, I really dislike that title for the article that I wrote in December, because that's not the title that I suggested, and I don't think it's a good title. But at any rate, if those of you who haven't written an article could think about an article coming up for May, June, July, that would be great. And we can talk about that more in February.
Great, thanks, Diane.
Can I ask, just because I'm forgetting this for my own edification, I guess, what the topics are that Ron and Josh you have in mind for January and February?
Mine was a dark sky, protecting the dark sky.
And mine was going to be on native plantings, and with a tie to the grant cycle that's open now via the county. And I just noticed that a couple of days ago, they already ran a piece on that. And so I think I'll maybe lessen it a little bit and maybe even encourage them to refer to the earlier article or link to it in the digital version or something like that. But I'll definitely make the connections in terms of like what people could use those dollars for in terms of native plantings.
Oh, that's perfect timing then for the invasive species article to tie back to the native plantings. I love it.
Yeah, and just another thing, Will, just, in terms of writing these articles, we've generally tried to make them in the persuasive format. I don't know if Diane, if Scott's kind of along the same lines, that he wants us to continue going down that path of those instead of them just being a technical article. I think it's been a pretty good approach, but it does take a little bit of practice to kind of get it down, writing these articles, and really, it's writing about something that you're passionate about, and some of those passions might be developing as you spend more time on RCC. So again, just kind of keep your eyes open to it, and hopefully there's a topic that interests you and you want to write something about in the future, and we can go ahead and do that.
By the way, Ron, did you submit your article last week? I meant to follow up with you and I forgot.
Yeah, I submitted it to Scott.
Would you send me a copy, please?
Sure, I thought I did.
Well, if you did, I didn't get it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I usually CC you on it, so I'll send it over.
That's all I have on the Star.
Right. Thanks, Diane. All right, next item 5G, the Aldo Leopold MMSD Recycling Initiative update. Chris and Kim, anything there?
Well, there's been too much going on there. Kim and I did go and put a bunch of signage in the school. I think it was November, early December period. So just to kind of support the recycling stations that we have in that school. There was also in November, I don't know, Kim or Diane, if you guys went to the food waste audit that we did there. I don't know if you can speak.
I did. I helped with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did a waste audit, and with the pandemic, we basically stayed outside, so it was a nice cold day. But there were a couple of classrooms who volunteered to help us with it. So they had different buckets that they put their milk cartons, their waste, and wrappers in, and then gave us the buckets outside, and we weighed them and took information on kind of what we saw. And I don't think I've seen any results of that, but it was basically 2 classrooms that we monitored for the waste audit. And the point of doing that was to kind of see, with the recycling efforts in place, these classrooms are eating, or these students are eating in their classrooms. And so we want to kind of get a sense of how they are doing with recycling their milk cartons. So we just kind of did a small sample with a food waste audit.
And what did you think?
For the most part, they were doing pretty well. I think there was one classroom did a little bit better than the other classroom, but it was such a small sample because there were a number of kids that were out the day they did it. But I think overall, for the most part, they were doing pretty well in terms of recycling their cartons.
So just to add to it a little bit more context. So there's the World Wildlife Fund has paid for this food waste study. So this one at Leopold was one of like 30 to 50 food waste audits that'll be conducted at 10 elementary schools across the Madison School District. So there's going to be a lot more happening once kind of schools get rolling again. And we are having conversations about this data with the operations team. So the chief operations officer for the Madison School District is involved and in the know as to what we have going on and what we're seeing in the schools. And they are stepping up more and more to want to invest in food waste reduction, recycling programs, and getting the containers and making this part of the process at all the schools, and not just a developing pilot program that we seem like we've been in for for years. So very encouraging stuff, and so we're continuing to push forward on this. And with any luck, within the next couple of years, we'll just have standard recycling programs at all the schools. A couple of things on the food waste side of things. I think the city of Madison and Dane County are very interested in the data, so we do have them tied into this as well, as Dane County is looking to build their kind of food waste infrastructure for the county. And so this is, one way for them to just kind of look at what's going on in the schools and just be kind of tapped into just some of the different places where food waste is happening. So lots of exciting stuff kind of coming out of this. So, even though it's only a couple of classrooms, in some cases, hopefully it's full grade levels and eventually, hopefully full cafeterias again, that we're able to do some of these food waste audits on, and then just kind of continue to look at the data as we collect more and more of it to see what's happening in the schools, and and giving that data to the food nutrition to kind of reduce those, the food that's wasted in the schools.
It's really good, really encouraging development, Chris. Really encouraging.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Kim. All right, next up, council update, Gabriella.
Yeah, thank you. I've got quite an update today. So since the last time we met, I mentioned at the last meeting that we were planning to purchase, the police department was planning to purchase a hybrid vehicle that was approved by council. So we used about half of the money that's currently in the hybrid electric vehicle fund to pay for the extra expense of buying a hybrid vehicle. They've assured me that they're going to learn as much about hybrid vehicles as they can in the hope that they can start purchasing hybrid squad vehicles. This vehicle is an administrative vehicle, so it's not a full squad car, but it does have some of the equipment that a police department vehicle uses, you know, the radios and some light systems that it's more complicated than a typical vehicle. So a hybrid vehicle, it has needs that they have to figure it out. And there certainly are hybrid vehicles in the market, but I think the department will be much more comfortable moving to full hybrid squad cars in the future when they kind of dip their toe in the water here. So I feel like it's a really good start. And it's officially the first hybrid vehicle in the city of Fitchburg. So very exciting stuff. So we just need to get that electric vehicle first electric next. But the hybrid vehicle is a big win. So that was fun. We passed our 21921 in November, and that was expanding the urban service area to include a little bit off of Lacey and Seminole Road to accommodate an Edgewood College project. That still has to go through additional approvals, but some of you may have heard about it, but they had to go to CARPC to get approval. And I haven't heard, I don't know if it's gone through CARPC yet, but basically it's going to be their athletic complex for Edgewood College here in Fitchburg. They're going to have all sorts of different athletic fields, not football, but soccer and tennis and other types of track and field facilities. So it's pretty much just the athletic facilities, but then also because there's kind of a natural wetland. It's not a native wetland. It's just kind of a wet area that it's considered a wetland based on conditions. They're going to restore that into kind of more of a native wetland area and use it as a project for their environmental science students and also as a teaching tool. Sounds kind of great. I'm excited about what they're
Where's that going to be at?
It's going to be right on Lacey and Seminole. So yeah,
That's more
right
traffic down there already, though.
Yeah,
That's
it's right where
gonna
that
add to
intersection is.
traffic nightmare.
Yeah. So that's coming. Well, so it's not coming. It's the first hurdle was crossed. They have to go through CARPC, and I have not heard about the status of that, so I can let you know next time. But there will be, I mean, if you guys want to know opportunities to provide additional comment, there'll be a lot of more discussion in Plan Commission before any of that goes through. You'd like to know?
Oh yeah, I would like to know. I mean, it's my neighborhood. It's already a big traffic jam at school rush hour. People are backed up. And so we're going to have more people down there. It'll be at nighttime. And
Ron, have you looked at the roundabout plans down there?
no, I haven't, but I know the roundabout's going in there. So it's just, I don't know.
I can send out the video in case you want to see their presentation.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I can send that link out. And I'll try to flag any sort of future meetings. Not everything goes through council. Some of it is just stays in Plan Commission. But I'll try to flag all the different things for you if I can keep on top of it. But I can definitely send out the video so you can get a sense of it. I know also the lights that they are using are dark sky compliant. But that wetland project is kind of an interesting aspect of it. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the people at the high school there didn't want it where they wanted it.
Yeah.
So now we get their problems. Well, that's my personal opinion. So
I'll definitely send out that video though, and let you know. I'll try to flag if there's any additional meetings next time it comes up. And then our 23621, which we passed at the first meeting in December, we purchased a drone for the city with a donation from the Burby Walsh family, paid for it. And it's going to be shared by the police department, the fire department, public works, and Back TV. And they'll use it for all sorts of different things. But I think from a stormwater and a sustainability perspective, it'll be really interesting to be able to get those bird's eye view on demand whenever we want it.
Mhm.
And we also plan, the 22 budget includes funding for a GIS tech specialist, a technician that only does GIS work for the city across all departments. They'll also have access to these aerial images. So anyway, it's a lot more data coming in. So it should be interesting to see how that develops over time. But that's a done deal, thanks to the Rippy Wash family.
Who's the pilot for that, Gabrielle?
They're going to train multiple people in the city to be a pilot. So I'm not sure who's going to be selected, but I assume it's someone from Public Works and maybe someone from Fact TV. They'll have at least 2 pilots. And that will be an ongoing cost to the city. You know, we will have to train them and make sure that they stay up to date.
Mhm.
Gabriella, will there no longer be a GIS person in Public Works?
I don't know how that position is being combined or separated. I don't think that there was a position eliminated to make way for the GIS technician,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% certain. I wish maybe Bill can comment if he's listening in. And then the budget, I think you guys probably already got the info about the budget, but the 2 main things that you might be interested in, number 1, the urban forester went from 3 days a week to 4 days a week. So
Yay.
that was great.
That's good.
So Anna has a lot more time during a week to work on this. And then the other thing was the sustainability plan passed $25,000, and that passed 7-1. And it actually passed twice because it was brought back for reconsideration and it passed 7-1 again. So it had solid support from the council, which is really encouraging. And I didn't quite know what to expect. So I was very pleased to see that.
Who was the one?
Dave Herbst, Alder Herbst.
Ron, he thought that sustainability should be done at the individual level, not at the government level. I mean, he's not against sustainability. He just thought it was more an individual responsibility.
Okay.
If any of you want to see the discussion, I mean, if you're curious about, a lot of the alders made comments, so it is an interesting little tidbits here and there about it. So let me know if you're curious to watch the discussion. I could send you a link. So that's budget. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is ARPA and TID funding. So we have 3.2 million in federal funds through the American Rescue Plan Act. We also happen to have the closure of TID number 4, I think, and we expect about $3 million to be left over, which will go back into the city coffers that we can use for anything that we want, basically. And we don't have to use it, but we could use all of it if we wanted to. So that's like a little over $6 million of funding that we have to play with, which is kind of extraordinary. You know, it's very rare that we have that kind of big chunks of money. So the council passed in December a schedule for putting together a spending plan. And it kicks off this Wednesday night, January 12th at 7 p.m. At the committee of the whole meeting. The finance director is going to go through the American Rescue Plan Act recommendations. So they just released the final recommendations about what that money can be used for. There is limitations, that money has limitations. So we're going to go through that and discuss it. And the mayor is putting together a plan that will be released to the public on January 24th. So I'm going to be submitting some ideas to the mayor to include in the initial proposal, his initial proposal. And then there will be a process whereby alders can submit amendments. So there'll be a finance committee meeting on February 2nd to talk about the mayor's plan. There'll be a public hearing at the February 8th Common Council meeting to gather ideas. And then a little while, less than a week later, February 14th is when the council amendments are due. We asked for a little bit of extra time so that if any great ideas came up at the public hearing, there would be time for an alder to potentially submit an amendment to add that in. And then in February, at the February Committee of the Whole, we'll probably discuss the amendments. And then the end of March, there'll be a public hearing and then a vote on the amendments. So all of that being said, now is a great time to come with ideas. I'll be there on Wednesday night. We'll talk about it. And I'll be bringing up ideas for the mayor to consider in his initial proposal. If you want to write an individual email to the mayor with something specific you'd like to advocate for, you are all welcome to do that as individuals. But if there's anything specifically that you would like me to ask for, feel free to jump in right now and let me know, or send me an email or give me a call. But the earlier the better. Obviously, as long as it's before like February 10th, I can always submit it as an amendment. But if we can get as much information to the mayor early on as possible, it could be included as in the initial proposal.
Gabriella, does all of that money have to be spent, or can some of it be used to reduce property taxes?
So the ARPA funding is, we spend it or we eventually lose it. I think we have to spend it by 2024.
Yeah.
And then the TID funding, if we do not utilize all of it, then yes, it goes back to the taxpayers.
Is one of the proposals that you're submitting, does it have to do with stormwater?
So ARPA funding can be used for stormwater projects. To be honest, I haven't read through all the requirements yet, so I can't speak to exactly, which is why if Wednesday night would be a great opportunity. But yes, stormwater projects will be a part of the spending plan. Probably ARPA funding, probably not TID funding, but it's possible it could be a little bit of both. So the ARPA funds are more restricted, right? So whatever we can pay for through ARPA funding would be more appropriate than using any of that TID funding.
So some of those really bad stormwater issues that Claudia covered with us, I'm blanking on the neighborhoods, but we can use some of the money for those.
Yes, and that's been discussed. Yeah, I'm certain that we're going to be spending a good chunk of it on stormwater issues.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some of that money be used for Swan Creek, a monitoring station, potentially adding some more parameters that the USGS can measure for us regarding nutrients. Right now, they just do a limited amount, and the amount that's going to be done this year has been funded more by private individuals contributing. So it'd be nice if the city could kick in some extra funding for that, but also making sure that, we have a good funding base for the next couple of years to maintain that station. So
that's a great idea. And I did want to ask Phil, like, if I'm going to put in for more money for the sustainability plan.
yeah.
I don't really know at what level I want to ask for, but I was hoping that you might have some sense, like, is putting a $50,000 RFP going to be, I assume that's better than putting out a $25,000 RFP. I'm curious if you have any feedback, and you don't have to do it right now on the spot if you don't want to, but I'd like to know what you think.
Yeah, I was just thinking I was going to reach out to you in the next week with that and maybe a couple other thoughts.
Awesome.
So Gabriella, the committee of a whole meeting for us, so what date has that been moved to?
I don't know, but
So
March would
February
be
is
the
not
earliest.
in, right?
I don't think so. I think the whole February meeting is going to be taken up by the discussion about the spending plan. So
Okay.
I don't think you should plan on February.
Okay.
I don't know what Aldo Udell's plan is for March yet. So maybe it'll just get pushed to March.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else? That's it?
That'll
Right
be
on
it.
time, right on time. Okay, next staff and commissioner updates, solid waste. I see Bill has joined us. Hi, Bill.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, I've been here the whole time. So
I saw you there.
yeah, I can answer a couple of questions that came up earlier with regard to the Edgewood proposal. The public hearing for that is going to be coming up on Thursday at 7 o'clock with the Carp Sea Commission. So that's at 7, and then the following week, the board itself will take action whether or not to approve that. So Thursday at 7 p.m. Online, I think you can go to their website and get the link. Otherwise, you can contact me and I can get it to you if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm interested. So is that Fact TV then?
This is with the City of Madison's planning.
Oh, okay,
department.
City of Madison.
And so it's with their media outlet and social media with that. But yeah, it's the city will be putting a presentation together for the application, and we've got that available for review too, that you can take a look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Let's see what else. There was something else that you guys talked about.
Is Claudia
Oh.
coming back? Do you know if she's coming back in March or April? Is that date? Do you have an idea?
It's scheduled for late March.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
I think a question also came up, Bill, about the new GIS technician position and how that
Sure.
gets incorporated into the public works.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I've been working on while you've been meeting is actually redefining our job description for the stormwater engineer and the part-time stormwater engineer. Over the holidays, we advertised for the part-time stormwater engineer internally. And Claudia applied for it, so she would like to go to part-time. So we'll be advertising for a full-time stormwater engineer in the near future. The GIS technician or GIS specialist was actually only 10% GIS and the rest was stormwater and refuse recycling. So that job was a very little part of GIS to actually, that was being done. So when the new GIS, I think it's a coordinator or specialist, that's the advertisement is going for classification for. When that one goes in, we would just have a stormwater environmental technician in our department. So they would solely be focused on environmental stormwater issues, still doing some of the GIS, for updating our GIS related to stormwater and things like that. But it wouldn't be citywide like currently the person is doing now.
So there'll be a full-time stormwater position, which is what Claudia had, and then a part-time, and then the person that used to do GIS. Is that how that will work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the person that used to do GIS would be the environmental technician
Okay.
under the stormwater team.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. So yeah, Claudia will be coming back, but she'd like to be part-time.
She won't be coming back to RCC, huh?
No, she would like that to be delegated to someone else. So.
We can take offense at that.
Yeah.
I guess you can take it up with her when she comes back. So, but yeah, she's doing great. She's very happy where she's at right now, and basically what we're going to do for the stormwater environmental is provide some more focus in those areas where the part-time engineer will be doing more environmental outreach, permit management, planning, grant seeking, the things that we don't have a lot of time to look into. And then the full-time stormwater engineer would be more on the implementation part of things with construction, designing, inspection, oversight of staff. But yeah, we're just kind of splitting things up a little bit and providing, a little bit more time that we can focus on some areas that we need to focus on.
Good.
Gabrielle, I don't know if any of that extra money could be used for staffing. Or
The ARPA TID funding?
Yeah.
No, it's not a good, it's typically bad practice because we can't guarantee the funding in the operating budget for the following year.
It's not sustainable.
It's better, it's one-time use funds is pretty much what this plan is going to incorporate.
Yeah, with regard to the stormwater part of things, as Gabriella mentioned, the ARPA funding meeting coming up on Wednesday. We received some final guidance from the federal government last week, and they changed some of the language on there that now we can use them for flood mitigation projects as well. It used to be just specifically environmental quality projects that we could use the money for, but they expanded that. So basically all of our stormwater projects now qualify for using that funding versus just, retrofits of ponds and things like that for our water quality.
Good.
So that was a good thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working on for the past couple months here.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bill.
Oh, can I
Uh,
just ask real quick? I know Claudia showed interest in the county grants, and those just opened and they're due towards the end of February. So I just wanted to call that out again, that they'd be, municipalities can apply and they can go towards things like capital improvements or native plantings or things of that nature. So just wanted to, I don't know that I can really contribute to that as a member of that committee that reviews, but I know she indicated that the city might be interested in that. So just wanted to put that back on the radar again.
Yeah, I know last year we had a few projects that Gabriella proposed for like median, prairie plantings, sustainable issues like that. That would probably be a pretty good project that we could put in for funding for.
Okay, thank you. Phil, anything on sustainability you probably haven't already shared?
Yeah, pretty quickly. Spent a good chunk of November, December working on. We finally got some trail counters to try and get a better sense of where we've got traffic and how much along different trails, bikes, and pedestrians. That'll hopefully push us towards being a gold bike friendly community, but also help some of our trail planning efforts and thinking about how we handle that in the community. And then working on bringing that annual energy report internal. So that's something that I'm still hoping to complete. It's not quite there yet, but got a good chunk of the work out of the way. And now kind of just need to organize, build some new charts and organize that into a little bit more of a coherent report. January has been and will continue to be the month of grants. Been working really hard to try to put together a grant for the Public Service Commission's Office of Energy Innovation grant for this 2022 cycle. Still waiting on some data to hopefully be able to get that submitted by this Friday. But then once that deadline is up, I've got 2 more weeks to work with a few folks on a Department of Transportation Alternatives Program grant, because we are talking with a few different parties about bringing bike share into Fitchburg and hoping that we can already start planning towards future expansion of a program that we feel is going to get a lot of participation and buy-in from Fitchburg residents and businesses. So that is where most of my January is focused. Once January is done, then I'll be able to shift back to finishing that energy report for last year, get a little bit more precise work done on those trail counters, start collecting data for whoever's been out on the trails this winter, good on them. And then start really digging into a sustainability plan approach and talking with folks about putting together that RFP.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Wow, we're ahead of schedule by a few minutes. So our last thing is kind of activities being conducted or monitored by the commissioners. Anybody would like to talk about? I don't have anything. Diane?
I have something.
Okay.
Some of you might recall that I think it was at least a year ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, Claudia suggested having somebody talk to the chamber about the Chamber of Commerce members about salt reduction. If you remember last winter, we discussed how it would be nice if, maybe the city could send out to these businesses that are oversalting their sidewalks a letter. And Claudia suggested, because of staffing issues, that maybe we could just do something with the chamber. And by the time this happened last year, it was really too late to get anything organized. But I did contact, actually I contacted Mmsd last year, and they were too busy to do anything last year. They'd already made commitments. But somebody from Mmsd followed up with me, I think it was in November. Yeah, it was in November, to see about presenting to the chamber in January or February. And so I contacted the chamber to see if they were interested in having somebody from Mmsd do a presentation. And it took a while and a couple of emails before I got a response from the chamber, and they already had somebody booked for both January and February. But they said they could share a video or a link to a video. and by the time she responded, Angela responded to me, it was the break between Christmas and New Year's, and MMSD, my contact there, was out of the office. So nothing is going to happen for a presentation this year, but I noticed that it's on the calendar, RCC's calendar for next September, October, I can't remember. And maybe that will serve as a reminder that we can contact, somebody from here can contact MMSD and the chamber and get that scheduled for next year. I don't know if you've done much walking, but it's just disgusting how people are not listening to the reduce your salt usage. It's just very frustrating. Anyway, I want to let you know that I was impressed that MMSD followed up with me, but unfortunately, that's just not going to work out with the chamber.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for following up on that.
Yep.
All right, so the next meeting is scheduled for February 14th at 6:30 p.m. If there's not anything else, I just have a motion to close the meeting.
I did just have one. I
Okay.
did just have one ask on the agenda packet. Would it at all be possible to have a version that would have like a page number in the agenda correlating to where it's falling within the packet, just to easier orient to kind of where each of these sections are, especially when they start to get this large?
Josh, each of these PDFs has bookmarked. I don't know if you could use the bookmark section on when you download the PDF in Adobe Acrobat. If you open up the left side panel, every single section is bookmarked.
Okay.
Yeah. I can show you next time we're in person if you want. That's the easiest way to run through packets in my experience.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the way that they're constructed, doing the page numbers would be pretty time consuming.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Great job.